And everyone was to acknowledge the Bishop of Rome as the vicar or the representative or replacement of Christ on earth. So that law was passed with Emperor Justinian's military backing. Justinian installed Pope Vigilus as the first pope to be installed by a government in 538 AD, made that pope or that Bishop of Rome the ruling power of that Roman Empire. So we see the establishment here that the papacy, which is the office that governs the Roman Catholic Church, now also becomes a secular or political power. Now point 3, remember point 3 says that this little horn must make blasphemous claims against Yahweh God. The little horn had a mouth speaking great words against the Most High. Now so far, we have the papacy that is ruling the Roman Empire, matching the points that we have. We have it being a non-military power. And does it match the third point? The Pope alone, according to Lucius Ferraris, this is the document here. So it's an actual document. It's the Prompta Bibliotheca, or the handy library. And in this, Lucius Ferraris, who is a great Catholic theologian, he said the Pope alone is deservedly called by the name Most Holy because he alone is the vicar, representative, or replacement of Christ, and he alone is the fountain and source of fullness of all holiness. He is likewise the what? Divine, and divine means God, right? Only God is divine. So he is the divine monarch and supreme emperor and King of kings. Hence the Pope is crowned with a triple crown as what? King of heaven and of earth and lower regions. Now notice, brethren, remember when Jesus said, I and my Father are one. They said that's blasphemy. But isn't these titles, King of Heaven, blasphemous to apply to a human being? Isn't to say someone is the vicar of Christ, which we know that's the role of the Holy Spirit, that's the one that Jesus Christ sent to replace himself. Remember he told his disciples, I will come again to you, I will send my Holy Spirit to you so that you will not be alone. Isn't the vicar of Christ another blasphemous title? And brethren, this is just one example because, as I said before, I am cutting down the sermons for time's sake. But the Bible tells us that Christ is the head of the church, and the church is subject to Christ, not to the Bishop of Rome. And not only is Christ the head, we know he's the foundation. But here in the book Crossing the Threshold of Hope, Pope John Paul II makes this claim. He says, have no fear when people call me what? The vicar of Christ. When they say to me, Holy Father or Your Holiness, or use titles similar to these, which seem even inimical, which means what? Contrary to the gospel. So Pope John Paul is saying, when you see people call me Holy Father and Your Holiness and Vicar of Christ, these titles may seem to be contrary to the gospel, which he admits because he says, Christ himself declared what? Call no one on earth your father, you have but one Father in heaven. Do not be called master, you have but one master, the Messiah. These expressions nevertheless have evolved out of a long tradition, very long, thousands of years back, becoming part of a common usage. One must not be afraid of these words either. So here this man has so much power that he can tell you, even though Christ said, don't do this, it is okay to do it because we have established a long tradition of doing these things which are contrary to the gospel. Now, isn't that blasphemous? That you can claim to overrule what Christ has said we should not do. You can say it is okay because we have established this as long tradition. So, brethren, we are seeing that the descriptions are getting more and more and more, applying more and more to this particular power. Point 4, the little horn must persecute God's people during a predetermined time of 1260 years. Now, I said I would explain how we come to that. Now, a prophetic year is 360 days. Now, the saints of God, according to Daniel, were to be given into the hand of the little horn for a time, which would mean one prophetic year, 360 days, all right? And 360 prophetic days, remember in Daniel, a day is an actual year. A day is an actual year in Daniel's prophecies. So anyway, we have 360 prophetic days. Then times, plural, would be 2 prophetic years, which will be twice the 360, so we have 720 prophetic days. A dividing of times will be half. Divide the time in half, so you have 180, which is half of 360. If you add those up, 360 plus 720 plus 180, you come to 1260 prophetic days, or 1260 actual years. So the time period that God's people were to be persecuted by the little horn is 1260 prophetic years. Also, just to show you that I did not just pull this out of my head, the Bible also has the same, gives us the same interpretation. Look at this. Revelation 12:14. To the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time. That's dividing of time. Now look the interpretation here. The woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,203 days. How much is 3 score? 60. So 1,260 prophetic days is 1,260 actual years. So I just showed you that to show that the Bible interprets itself. So did the papacy now persecute God's people during a period of 1,260 years? Question. Now, this man, Cardinal Robert Bellarmine, is a Roman Catholic priest, responding to Martin Luther, the great reformer, said to Cardinal Bellarmine, the Church of God would never persecute people. Now, Cardinal Bellarmine thought that Martin Luther was saying the Catholic Church would not persecute people. So hear what Robert Bellarmine said to Martin Luther. This argument proves not the sentiment, but the ignorance or impudence of Luther. For as almost an infinite number were either what? Burned or otherwise put to death. Luther either did not know it and was therefore ignorant, or if he knew it, he is convicted of impudence and falsehood, meaning he's lying. For that heretics were often what? Burned by who? The church, may be proved by adducing a few from many examples. So Cardinal Bellarmine is saying, listen, Luther, if you are saying that the true church has never persecuted, there are many examples that the church did, but he was talking about the Catholic Church, while Luther was saying God's true church would never persecute people. Now, we see here that heretics were often burned. That means people who are convicted of heresy. Now, what is heresy? Now, if you were going to convert to the Catholic religion in those days, you had to take the profession of a Catholic convert, which basically